How you doing, good people? This is the 8-Bit Animal, and today we're going to talk about one of the most divisive games on the NES. Now, I know this game is easily subject to ridicule, some of it rightfully so. But to say this is the worst game on the NES absolutely negates the existence of Color a Dinosaur. It negates all of the games published and developed by Color Dreams. It acts like the Back to the Future games didn't exist. It acts like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde never existed. This game isn't great. I will say it is a bad video game. But to assume that it's the worst thing on the console, yeah, it got a bad rap. It was the first game developed by a team called Lenar. It was published in Japan by Irem and was brought to the US by Broderbund, who ended up having to change the name because the title that was originally come up with for the American market, Hell's Bells, Nintendo of America would not give that the seal of quality. But the title that they gave the game, we're going to talk about that in a second. Today, we are going to take a look at Deadly Towers. Okay, first things first. Deadly Towers, at the time of its release, was the biggest adventure title as far as scope on the NES. It was bigger than the first two, both quests of The Legend of Zelda. It was bigger than the entirety of that game. You had 7 towers, you had an overworld, you had sprawling dungeons in each tower, a parallel world that would pop up at different points in the game, stuff like that. It was just a big video game. And it was an ambitious game. The problem is that Lenar, which was headed up by a guy who did character design and stuff like that for Tower of Druaga, the classic Namco hack and slash dungeon crawler, he wanted to make something on that scale for the Famicom. And this was just not it. It tried so hard and got so far, but the enemy knockback is merciless. There's no, you have no post hit invincibility. Enemies move in really random non-pattern patterns, and it's just all of the hard stuff is front loaded at the beginning of dungeons. It's a tough video game. It's a brutal video game. When you lose, when you die, you get punted back to the very beginning of the game. You gotta start over. And while you might have your permanent power-ups, like your health power-ups, stuff like that, any items that you collected during the course of the game, any of the stuff that you grinded to get money to buy from shops, is gone. But all that aside, the story is interesting. You got this guy, Prince Meyer, who's about to be crowned. He's about to have his coronation. And just before his coronation, a being comes to him and basically tells him, hey, Rudis, the king, like this demon king, is about to assemble his army. The only way to stop him is to get these bells and burn them in the sacred flame. You burn all these bells, he can't summon his army, and you can defeat him and peace will reign. Problem is, Prince Meyer is pretty weak at the start of the game. Like, stupidly weak. He can't bust a grape in a fruit fight. He's weak. It takes a long time for him to get strong enough to be able to do anything. By the time you get strong enough to do anything, you die, you fall off a cliff, the knockback is slippery, it sends you off a cliff, stuff like that. You get your butt kicked in this game often. It's a hard video game in the worst ways. It's not like challenging hard, it's cheap hard. And it just leaves you wanting. It leaves you lacking in a major way. But you know, they tried. A for effort, guys. Execution, probably a D+. Now, if you decide you want a copy of Deadly Towers, I don't know why. They're plentiful because Deadly Towers sold a bunch of copies. There are a lot of copies out in the wild. And you can get a copy of Deadly Towers starting at about $5, $5.50, something like that. It's a cheap video game. It's not a beloved game. You can thank this internet gaming pioneer by the name of Sean Baby. I don't know what his record is now. I don't know any of that. But you can thank guys like Sean Baby and the Angry Video Game Nerd for basically helping to give this game a reputation that's deserved by much worse. These guys act like Back to the Future didn't exist. I don't get it, but you know. But yeah, man, this game was probably a couple of tweaks from being a good game, and it was probably a year too late because this came out in the States after Rygar, after Legend of Zelda, after Kid Icarus, I want to say after Metroid. So much better action adventure games already existed. This one was a little too late to be considered good, and here we are with the legend, the infamous Deadly Towers. This has been the 8-Bit Animal, and I'll catch you beautiful people tomorrow. Tomorrow. Okay, I have a lot of questions. The first being, why was this adapted into a kid's show to be adapted into a video game?